And is that a socialist or progressive perspective?
No. No, it is the perspective of a woman who grew up a black child in America, who was also a prosecutor, who also has a mother who arrived here at the age of 19 from India, who also, likes hip hop.
I really ask this in all sincerity. What's funny? Why is she laughing kind of hysterically at what's so funny about the question? Does anyone? Kamala does have a habit of laughing at I wouldn't say necessarily inappropriate. That sounds a little bit severe, but at strange times. And I wonder how much of that is just a habit or it's a dodge, especially after being asked a question. Yeah, look, credit where it's due. Nora O'Donnell asked her a real question here. At least there's one. It wasn't a hard question. It was a real question. It wasn't, how does it feel to be on the cusp of perhaps making history? That's a classic, lib media to Democrat candidate question, right? That's the real sweet stuff. That's the real center of the bullseye there. Yeah, that's what they want to do. That's what the American people want to know. How does it feel to just be so historic and to be in such a great position of leadership, especially if you win, Oh, gosh, how do I handle that question? But Kamala, again, doesn't answer this at all. Are you the most liberal senator? I mean, according to a nonpartisan fact check, whatever, how much faith we put in that is a different discussion. But according to a nonpartisan fact check place, we are, in fact, looking at somebody who may be the most left wing, which is remarkable. Does that include Bernie Sanders? Maybe Bernie on trade is is more centrist than Kamala is, and maybe Bernie on the border is more radical than Kamala. I'm sorry, less radical than Kamala. But that's pretty remarkable that Harris is being positioned here, or at least being accused might be the wrong word, but people are claiming that she's more left-wing than the actual socialist who ran against her, who did much better than she did, by the way. I think that's also noteworthy here. But we also know what Harris is doing. Harris plays a role in this campaign for Biden, and then the transition to Harris away from Biden in the future. And the immediate role is that, as I said, identity politics are essential to the Democrat Party. They really believe in voting for people based upon what the right would consider the superficial and entirely unimportant as it pertains to intelligence, character, decency, or anything else, characteristics of nationality, skin color, things like that. The right just looks at these things and says, we just want the best person for whatever the job is we're talking about here. The left says, no, we need somebody who addresses, because of these superficial characteristics, addresses the following, historic injustices or something like that. And Kamala checks those boxes. And I think it's interesting. She would also be, her mother is from India, so she would also be the first Indian American president, which I just think they never bring that up. I never hear that in the media, which always strikes me as kind of strange. Why doesn't that? We hear all the time about the first black female president, which, yes, that is historic and that would be a first, but also the first Indian American president. I just feel like, well, I think the answer is that the Indian American community, the Democrat Party, is not relying on them to churn out votes, to get votes going the same way that the black community. Look, the black community is absolutely essential if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are going to win this thing. Just that's obvious. It's clear. And so I understand why there's a focus, but I do think they should, and maybe it's happened a few times. Anyway, I'm getting down the rabbit hole on that one. It surprised me a little bit. And then you have Kamala saying what I know is part of the job, part of the role, is to just always talk about what a racist Trump is. We have to hear about what a racist Trump is. Play 12.
President Trump has attacked you frequently. He's called you a monster. He said you're nasty and it would be an insult to our country if you became the first female president. Do you see this as just the rough and tumble of politics, or do you view those attacks against you as racist?
Well, This is not the first time in my life I've been called names. And it was predictable, sadly.
Do you think the president is racist?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do. You can look at a pattern that goes back to him questioning the identity of the first black president of the United States. When there were peaceful protesters and on the other side neo-Nazis, and he talks about fine people on either side, calling Mexicans rapists and criminals. His first order of business was to institute a Muslim ban. It all speaks for itself.
All lies or misrepresentations and lies from Kamala Harris on this point. So let's go through these. Let's go through them because it's such a smear. And I know there's a part of me that wants to just ignore it and say they're lying again. This is what they do. This is how the Democrats operate. But then there's also a part of me that wants to say we can't allow these smears to just go without response. And so we get bogged down in this once again. All right, the Charlottesville thing, that's just a lie. President didn't say what they say he said. It's a lie. There's a transcript. There's video. You can watch it. He was not talking about neo-Nazis. They're trying to misrepresent his words. If I quoted somebody, let's say, if I quoted somebody and I said, hey, do you guys hear that Bob said that I hate all people from Iceland? And then the media kept saying, Buck Sexton said the words, I hate all people from Iceland. That's technically true, but it's also a lie, right? You see what I mean? That's what they do to Donald Trump here. Yes, he said there were good people on both sides, referring to people on both sides of the whether you tear statues down or not debate, which is still an ongoing, and I live near Columbus Circle, where it is very much on the minds of the NYPD officers who are assigned to protect that statue from the statue. Remember when statue toppling was like this craze in the country for weeks and weeks? What happened to that? Remember when that was such a big deal? Oh, we got to pull down the statues. They pulled down the statue from the front of the Museum of Natural History of Teddy Roosevelt. All these statues that are going and getting pulled down. This spasm of iconoclasm. What was that all about? Control, rage, power. The mob. Just about the mob being angry, finding an outlet for its rage. But so she lies about Charlottesville, which is unsurprising. The Barack Obama birth certificate thing, this is interesting to me because you often hear this too. They will always say that this is racist when where a presidential candidate was born has actually been, meaning whether they were subject to the jurisdiction thereof. This goes back all the way to Alexander Hamilton. This goes all throughout our history. John McCain in the Panama Canal Zone, and there was a Mitt Romney ancestor born in Mexico. This has come up plenty of times with other presidents who are not Obama. Now, I always thought that the birth certificate thing was going to end in Obama's favor, and that's why he released the certificate that he did, and he knew that they were playing into his hands on this one. But this didn't come from to assume that somehow racial ignores all the history of, look, there's a very real argument. He probably, don't tell him I said this, but I've heard this from people who are very smart and look very closely. Ted Cruz, not really able to run for president. There's a real constitutional argument. The guy was not born in the United States and had parents who were not U.S. citizens. So, I know he was running, and I supported him in the primary. But there's a question mark there for sure. It's not, but no one would suggest that question. And I'm sure, don't tell, because bearded Ted Cruz is fierce. Don't tell him I said that, because he'll want to come on the show and argue, and he'll be citing precedent from, some case in 1804 or something I've never even heard of. And I'll be like, whatever. I have no beef with it. I'm just saying, no one would say that was racist. That's an area of inquiry and Ted Cruz is Latino. I know he's never thought of as Latino by the left, but he is Latino. He does, in fact, count as Latino. So that's not fair to say that this is all racist about Obama and the birth certificate. I'm not saying there weren't racists who probably liked the birth certificate issue, but it's not inherently an issue rooted in racism if you look at the history of people challenging whether or not somebody can run for president based upon their place of birth and their citizenship and the subject to the jurisdiction thereof clause. And what was the other? She said something. Oh, Mexicans, rapists and murderers. He didn't say that everybody, or rather, in the way that he was speaking, it was clear he's not saying that everybody. I should ask you this: does she really believe the president was claiming that every single Mexican immigrant is a rapist or a murderer? Of course not. That's a dumb thing to say. It was an imprecise way of saying there are MS-13 gang members, there are cartel, assassins and drug dealers that have flooded across our border over the years, and this is a bad thing. That is real. The president was imprecise in the way he described that, but he also was one of the first people who was willing to even talk about it. But she's, again, acting like she can't understand plain English or the way that people speak English, because he was clearly not suggesting that everybody who comes into the country is a rapist or a murderer from Mexico. That's a very dumb thing for anyone to suggest. And I forget even what the last one. Oh, the Muslim ban. You mean the temporary restriction on travel from countries identified by the Obama administration as having a high degree of terrorist threat, and that was rapidly amended to include like Venezuela and North Korea too, and was only, I think it was 13% of the Muslim world by population or something was affected by this. But yeah, it's just like an all-out Muslim ban. And they said, oh, but nobody would ever be caught under this ban. That would be a problem for us. Just like they said, no refugees from Muslim countries would ever cause issues here. Oh, you mean like the Tsarnaev brothers in the Boston Marathon bombing? Refugees, folks, from the Caucasus region, a Muslim region of the former Soviet Union. There was also a guy caught, I think, in Kentucky who was a refugee from Iraq who was planning a terrorist attack in this country. So, yeah, no, it does happen. But the media just went crazy on that issue. But notice I've gone through each one of these things. The reasons she gives for Trump are racist, are either lies or completely decontextualized and dishonest takes on what the president's position is or what he said. Oh, and since we're talking about lies and decontextualized statements, let's bring up the ACB, who's about to be Supreme Court Justice. Yay! Here's what Kamala said about that. Play 13.
I believe that this whole process has been absolutely illegitimate. The American people are voting by the tens of millions, and the election is going to be over in 9 days. And let the American people, and the majority of Americans agree with this, by the way, let the American people decide who's going to be their next president, and then let that president decide who fills a lifetime term on the highest court in our land.
But do you feel that she's qualified?
I will be voting against her.
Do you feel she's qualified, though?
I believe this is an absolutely illegitimate process.
An illegitimate process. How? I don't like something is not the same as saying it's illegitimate, right? I would prefer another outcome is not the same thing as saying something's illegitimate, but Democrats try to treat it like it is. This is just losers whining about something where they didn't get their way. That's all it is. Illegitimate process. Oh, and her claim about the American people, that's also a lie. The polls actually show that the American people now, after seeing who ACB is, they all turned in her favor. They're like, this woman's amazing. We'd be lucky to have her on the Supreme Court. And we are lucky because we have her on the, or we will shortly, I mean, depending on when you hear this, shortly have her on the Supreme Court. So that's a very good thing. But Susan Collins voting against it. Look, I get it. Democrats do this sometimes. This is the head fake. Collins maybe thinks she'll keep her Senate seat because she's voting against ACB. We'll see. I'm not sure. We don't need her vote, though, so it doesn't really matter. This is the same thing that happened with Manchin in West Virginia for Kavanaugh, where they didn't need that vote. So Manchin was allowed by the Democrat hierarchy to go pro-Kavanaugh because it didn't make a difference at that point, and they wanted to keep at least a ostensibly Democrat in West Virginia in the Senate. So ACB, victory for the good guys. That's the good news. But just everything Kamala says here, it's just the usual Democrat talking points and lies and misdirections, and she really just does not strike me as even a little bit of an. She's not interesting in her policy positions. She doesn't seem particularly well read in her policy positions. She was a kind of line prosecutor in the San Francisco DA office who attached herself to a very powerful man in San Francisco Democrat politics, and then just worked her way up the apparatus, and that's what ended up happening. And now she might be vice president of the United States. Pretty amazing when you think about it. Why don't we have a COVID relief deal yet? Why don't we have one? Well, because Nancy Pelosi doesn't want people to get money from the federal government to make them feel better, to make the market stabilize, to make businesses, continue to function, or at least be able to hope to keep their doors open again in the future until after the election. That's why. And here's how Pelosi responds to it when people are starting to realize she is the roadblock for millions of Americans getting much needed funds. Play 16.
3 Democratic governors wrote to you, President Trump, and other congressional leaders saying, among other things, quote, "We implore you to put differences aside and agree to another much-needed COVID-19 relief bill." In addition, one of your own members, Congressman Max Rose, said this week that the Democratic Party needs to learn to a certain extent how to declare victory and go home. You're getting a lot of messages from Democrats saying this is good enough. We need to say yes.
Welcome to my world. That is not a lot of messages, although I respect each and every one of them. The fact is, if we don't agree to the science to crush the virus, if they did what is in our bill that science dictates that we do, then if we do that, we can lower the incidence of the virus in certain areas, open schools, open businesses, and the rest. If we don't, we're just giving money to the president to spend any way he wants, and that has not been in furtherance of crushing the virus. So again, in terms of, we all want an agreement. Nobody wants it more than the House Democrats. We represent these people.
She keeps saying that we represent these people. Yeah, so do Republicans. What about the previous deals, Nancy? This is just supposed to be a re-up of the cash that was given out in previous deals. They've already ironed out some of the kinks. They've made this whole thing more efficient. Why is it different this time? The answer is because Nancy wants things politically. That's the only thing that's different. The need of the American people is the same. The need of small businesses that are getting crushed right now is the same. But Nancy doesn't care. She just does not care. And she also thinks she's going to keep the House. So that means she's even more defiant. Play 17.
You keep thinking that, Mr. President. You just keep on thinking that. Just another example of his delusional statements he made there. He said that we're on the decline with the virus, that
right.
But cleanest air, cleanest water.
If Democrats keep the House, are you going to run for another term as Speaker?
Yes, I am. But let me also say we have to win the Senate.
Yes, she is. Nancy should be Queen Nancy until she's 100, folks. Don't you see? Can't ever give power up because it's about the people.
It's about the children, and it's about we represent these people.
Nancy represents herself, folks.
Listen, there is no place in the United States of America where 2, 3, 4 hour waits to vote is acceptable. And just because it's happening in a blue state doesn't mean that it's not voter suppression. If we are waiting 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, if this was happening in a swing state, there would be national coverage. So I don't want us to think that just because this is a blue state that this isn't a problem. This is very clearly a problem. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. But that being said, at the same time, I am thrilled to see how many people who are overcoming this injustice, waiting in the lines anyway, bringing community supplies, snacks, lawn chairs. We are going to overcome this hurdle so that we can elect the folks that will make sure that this will not be a problem in the future.
That's right. A line, according to AOC, in New York to vote is now voter suppression. I don't say this to be mean. She's just really dumb. What else can you... It should be embarrassing to the residents of Queens who elected this person to Congress. It's not. She's just not smart. Powerful? Yes. Influential? Absolutely. Bright? No. Not bright. But don't have to be, as we see. A lot of dumb voters out there, unfortunately. That's the problem. Right? Dumb voters who make bad decisions and vote for dumb people. And this is an example of just the future of the Democrat Party here really believes that a line of people to vote is evidence of voter suppression, how is it? How are their votes being suppressed? They're in line. They got to wait. They all get to vote. What's the problem? Yeah. Is government slow and inefficient at things sometimes? Sure. Is this new? Remember, the same government that can't figure out a way to get people in and out to do something that takes about 20 seconds, 30 seconds max, can't get people to do that efficiently, wants to tell you exactly how to run every aspect of your life, including what you do in your own home, to prevent you from catching something that travels in the air that you like need an electron microscope basically to see. I mean, this is crazy, right? But that same government is supposed to be in charge, supposed to be running things. AOC is shockingly dumb, but you also have to remember she is the vanguard of the new Democrat left. She is going to be somebody, she's going to keep getting elected and elected and elected. AOC is going to be Speaker of the House one day, friends. You heard it here. Give it 3 more terms, 4 more terms. She'll be Speaker of the House. It's going to happen. Play 15 here when she tells you about what kind of leadership she wants the Biden administration to appoint.
I believe that it's critically important that the Biden administration appoint progressive leaders, whether it's in labor, whether it's in the Treasury, whether it's, Secretary of Education, et cetera, because the fact of the matter is that this isn't just about the progressive movement. This is about making sure that we're not just going back to how things were and rewinding the tape before the Trump administration. But this is about making sure how are we going to not just make up for lost time, but leap into the future and actually ensure that we are making the investments and policy decisions that will create an advanced American society. And frankly, conservative appointments will not get us there.
Left wing, that's what a Biden administration will be. And you know that. I know that. The whole game right now is pretending that something else is true. All right, let's get to roll call. Hit it.
Ain't no party like a Team Buck party, 'cause a Team Buck party don't stop. Yeah, we got Buck turned up to 11. It's time for roll call.
Facebook.com/Buck Sexton to send us messages, or if you want to email us, teambuck@iheartmedia.com, or if you want to, what was the other one? Oh, Instagram, Buck Sexton on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram if you're not already. I'm going to be doing more videos in advance of the election there. I'll be putting them there, and good things happen. Plus, you get the occasional Tallulah photo. Oh, and I got some news for all of you that I didn't get to share before. I probably should have shared it earlier in the show. I am now an uncle for the first time. My little sister, Daisy, who is the most amazing little sister in the world, just had, and she's, it's funny, 'cause she's like married and now having babies, but I still think of her as my little sis. She just had her first child, a son. His name is Ryan, and we're very happy. We're very excited. Everything's going very well so far. And this, producer Mark, means, you know what this means, right?
You are officially Uncle Buck. Congratulations.
I am Uncle Buck. Yeah. I'm going to have to change the connotation of that name. I'm going to have to do some work here so that Uncle Buck, when someone's like, oh, you're like an Uncle Buck, it means you're like the cool, hip uncle that takes the young lad to do kind of fun, manly stuff instead of the like fat ne'er-do-well who makes pancakes out of trash. And well, I don't even really remember Uncle Buck. I just remember not somebody I want to be associated with necessarily.
I just want to know when you became cool or hip. Either one.
Well, I'm going to have to become those things so that I can, I can then be the cool uncle.
You'll be the fun uncle.
Yeah, the fun uncle. There, I'll be the fun uncle. I'll work on that. But yeah, I got my pertussis shot, so I can go over and see the baby. I haven't seen the baby yet. I haven't been over there because I got stuck with Tallulah. Not stuck with. It's always fun. But I got the French bulldog for the family, and so I'm on dog patrol while my mom and dad and sister are all on baby patrol. So that's how this is going right now.
I think that's the smart way for the Sexton family.
Yeah, no, put me in charge of the canine. That I can handle. The baby, I don't know. They're so small. baby's like 6 pounds, 8 ounces, I think, or something like that. You know, it's little.
I've never even
babies.
held a baby.
I'm sorry?
I've never held a baby.
Really?
Not once. I don't have any young cousins or anything, so.
Yeah. I'm going to go over and hold the baby soon. So anyway, I am Uncle Buck, everybody. It's very exciting. All right. Your thoughts now. Roll call. Wesley. Hey, Buck. Big fan here from Staunton, Virginia. Your back and forth with producer Mark reminds me of the dialogue I used to have with my own little brother, who would check my vehemence and occasional brash intensity with calming, balanced words and a few well-placed jabs to keep me humble. It's a great formula for balanced and endearing dialogue, and as you can tell, it invokes much nostalgia in my own heart every day when I listen to your show. Well, thank you, Wesley. I always consider myself to be a pretty liberal guy until pretty recently. I guess because with politics, like many other things, the most mainstream option often seems to be the safest and most sensible choice when viewed from afar. The combination of discovering your show, coupled with the utter hysteria of these lockdowns here in Virginia, and leaving my job as a bartender to pursue a more meaningful career in commercial construction, has converted me to one of your most outspoken, and probably at the age of 26, one of your youngest wartime conservatives. I know I've lost some friends because of my views, but I refuse to be browbeaten into supporting a party that is as toxic and corrupt as the Democrats. I will be voting for Trump in November, something I never would have believed I would have ever said before, even just 1 year ago. Shields high. Well, Wesley, that is like a great testimonial, top to bottom for us. I feel like if we were putting out a brochure of the Buck Sexton Show, we could pull your roll call here and use that. It's great to hear that you've come over to our side of thinking on these political issues. We're very, very pleased about that. And welcome, and thank you for spreading the word about us. And Mark and I, we put a lot of work into this. Mark is doing stuff all day, all the time, and I'm always saying, Mark, can you help with this? Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And as much as he may grumble on air about it sometimes to you guys as a joke, he always does it. Totally reliable. So we're putting in a lot here to make this show what it is. And I told you guys before about the CNN 30-person staff. That's not what it is on radio. It's Mark, it's me, and then we have our partners at the First where we do video and they help produce the video side of it. But radio, it's just Buck and Mark. That's what we do every day. That's the show. So yeah, Gwinnett. Hey, Buck and producer Mark. I work for an oil and gas company. I heard you talking last week about fracking and how it just uses water, sand, and small amounts of chemicals. So few people know what fracking really entails, but it has become this evil thing. Not only are the things you said correct, but a well is only fracked when it is being drilled, which is usually 1 to 2 days, a week at the most. The left would like you to think that the companies are exploding large areas underground or that fracking is done continuously. These are misconceptions they promote. Keep up the good work of bringing the truth to the public. I love listening to your show, especially your imitation, Shields High. Well, thank you, Gwinnett. We appreciate that very much. And thanks for bringing a little bit of expertise on the fracking issue. Yeah, fracking is a boogeyman that the left has created that really has very little to do with what actual fracking is. And all this stuff about how it's contaminating drinking water. There's no evidence of this. There's no proof of this. They were making documentaries 10 years ago about how the water, remember this? Your well water was going to catch on fire from your tap because of fracking. All this stuff is, it's people that honestly lack real purpose in life, so they create these fake challenges for them that where they get to be a hero. They don't risk anything, and there's no real challenge to them, but they get to be a hero, and that's so much a part of the mentality here. It's a shame, but very real, going on all the time. Oh, that reminds me, since we said Shields High at the end here from Gwinnett, I found a new show over the weekend that I like. It's not great, but it's good. It's along the lines of The Last Kingdom. It's on Netflix. It is in German, so you got to have the subtitles, but it's called Barbarians. I think it's Barbaren in the German, but it's essentially the period where ancient Rome was trying to subdue some of the Germanic tribes, and they do the costumes and the whole historical vibe is very good. The battlefield stuff, or at least the fighting I've seen so far, is very well put together. Very high production value. I mean, I got to say, I so prefer, if we're having Germanic tribes, I so prefer them speaking to each other in German and reading subtitles than the Germanic tribes, for no apparent reason, having fancy British accents. Oh, this is about AD 60 or so. And so everybody in this Germanic area has an accent sort of like this because it's history. And in history, people have British accents. No. They speak in German because they're a Germanic tribe. And guess what? The Romans speak Latin because they are Latin speakers. And it makes the whole, because I prefer this. It makes the whole experience better. I know you have to read subtitles, which I'm okay with. But to me, it just adds such a level of authenticity for a historical piece like this, as opposed to what you have so much of the time where I just get sick of, like, why not just have them speak in American accents if they're going to be speaking English, right? Why do we have to do the whole, like, oh, I'm British, even though this is in German? It just doesn't make any sense to me. You know what I'm talking about, Producer Mark?
Yeah, when they do fake accents, even though they're in a different country, yeah.
Right, well, they love to do this with shows where they'll have, like, the show will be set in ancient Rome, and they'll have people who are the plebs, who are slaves, who are poor, and they'll be like, oh, look, I sound like I'm a dock worker from, the wrong side of London, mate. You know what I mean? And it's like, what? This is ancient Rome. Like,
it's for dramatic effect, I guess.
No, I know, but this has become a thing where we always expect that the British class accents translate into whatever period of history, and I'm like, why don't I don't know. I just think it's weird. But I guess we've all gotten used to it. But
does anyone truly know how they used to speak?
Well, no, but I know they didn't speak with a British accent in Germany in like the year AD 60. That I do know for sure.
Well, they certainly weren't speaking English.
Well, that's of course. Sure. That's true. But I'm just saying, if you're going to speak English so that people can understand you don't have subtitles, just like let the actors be actors, right? You don't need to do this fake English accent. See, sometimes you have American actors playing, German barbarians in the 1st century AD, putting on English accents. And you're like, what is this? Well, why are we doing this?
I mean, there's a lot of people like me. I'm not watching something with subtitles. I don't need to read if I'm watching TV. If I want to read, I'm going to read.
Yeah, I'm only a couple episodes in. It's good. Oh, and speaking of episodes, I got something else for you guys. So I've been telling you that we got some history podcasts coming, which fall under the description. We call them Shields High podcasts. Dracula, the real Dracula, Vlad Tepes or Vlad Dracul. Vlad Dracula or Vlad the Third. A lot of names. Vlad the Impaler. Half done on that one. We're going to have it out by this Thursday, but I need you guys. This is going to be our test case. I need you. This is total. It's history, not politics. No talk of the election. Nothing. This is our escape from that. But I'm going to release it in advance of Halloween, and I'm committing to that. I'm already halfway done with it. Probably have it out to you Thursday. And so it'll be great listening for the Halloween weekend. It's an amazing story about the real Dracula. And, be about a little less than an hour, I'd say, the whole podcast, maybe 40, 45 minutes. And I'm going to need the team to spread this one. I don't even care if someone likes politics. If they like history, I think they'll like this podcast. And then the numbers we get on this one will be the justification that I take to our bosses to continue the Shields High series, even beyond Malta, and do 6 or 12 episodes, probably 6 by the end of this year. That's the plan. But I'm gonna need the team to pass the buck on that one big time. The real Dracula, it's coming out. It'll be great. I'm already very pleased with the half of it that we've already put down. All right, JJ, greetings again from the People's Republic of California, Buck, and producer Mark. So I thought a lot about what you said about mass noncompliance with wearing masks, and I decided to try an experiment. I started by not wearing my mask properly at the grocery store. No one said anything. Then I stopped wearing my mask when picking up drive-thru. Not once was I denied service or asked to put on my mask. Now, either I've been extremely lucky or people are ready to be done with masks as I am. JJ, one thing I've noticed is that if you walk around with a mask pulled down, so like your nose is exposed or even your mouth, people have no problem with that. They just figure you're one of the good people who's a mask person and maybe you're making a mistake, but no issue, because this is all very political. I don't know. I can't tell you that people in California are really that tired of it. I feel like in New York, people aren't tired of it. They've been completely programmed into thinking that this is necessary and that this is really what has to happen in order for us to beat the virus. And it's just not going to happen, folks, but that's what we keep getting told. Mike, hey, Buck, as the election approaches, I can't help but think of the results no matter who ends up winning, whenever that may be. If our guy wins, my question is this: do you think blue states, mine being Massachusetts, and the left will inflict more stringent restrictions and shutdowns as punishment. We know the left acts like petulant children. Keep fighting the good fight. Shields high. Mike, yes. The answer is yes. Out of sheer spite, Democrat states will lock down to an insane degree if Trump wins, just because they're going to be so emotionally disturbed by it. They're going to want to make all of us miserable too. That's the show for today, team. More coming up tomorrow. Shields high.